Welcome to the Uncomfortable Conversations podcast, the untold stories of the 3HO Kundalini Yoga community. I'm your host, Guru Nishan. And as always, I like to read the intentions for why I started this podcast. And let's do that. Number one, to break the veil of silence that has long permeated and continues to strangle the 3HO Kundalini Yoga community in the name of neutrality. Number two, to validate and help clarify the complex feelings of those who have joined this lifestyle, were born and raised into it, and or who have practiced or taught Kundalini Yoga. Number three, to encourage active listening to uncomfortable conversations from our community as a revolutionary act of self and collective healing. Number four, to let survivors know that we see them, we believe them, we love them, and we will fight for their truth to be addressed. Number five, to let teachers who are denying, gaslighting, or spiritually bypassing know that what they are doing is willfully ignorant and re-traumatizing to victims. Number six, to illuminate the inherent racism, homophobia, cultural appropriation, and exploitation that perpetuates the teachings, 3HO lifestyle, and overall community ethos. And number seven, to stop the perpetuation of gaslighting and victim shaming by naming it for what it is. Number eight, to dismantle internalized shame, guilt, toxic positivity, and light-washing mentality. Number nine, to honor all the parts of ourselves that have been forgotten or silenced. Number 10, to honor each and every body that has come through this community, both named and unnamed. And number 11, to encourage people to do their own research, to process their own emotions, to get somatic therapy and other therapy and cult-specific therapy and other support as needed, to draw your own conclusions, and to be critical thinkers rather than to just blindly follow anyone. Your story matters. Please share it when you're ready. We're here to listen and to support you. Well, hello, folks. I want to say welcome back to another episode of the Uncomfortable Conversations podcast. It has been a while. And I know in my last episode, I had mentioned that we had some second generation stories coming down the pipeline, which we actually recorded some. And I have had several different second gen reach out to me to share their story. And then after recording, not be able to share their story. And I just want to just speak to that for a moment. And just as an audience, as listeners, as all of us that are survivors of the Kundalini Yoga 3HO culture or community, however you phrase it right now in your process, that's very normal. It's just very, very normal to not be ready to have your story out there, to expose yourself, to share your experience. And sometimes we think we're ready, and then we're not. And that's just called the healing journey. I want you to know I'm not offended. I'm not personally hurt. Am I frustrated sometimes? Sure. Because I'm not a therapist. I'm not your therapist. I'm doing the best I can to hold space, to offer a place and a space for stories to be shared. But I also want you to know I understand, because I'm also a survivor here. So take your time and be in your own therapeutic process. There's no hurry. You have no obligation, especially if you're a child of this community. Speaking to the second generation right now, we grew up with a lot of obligation to have to serve other people and to serve the world. And somehow our stories can feel like that we have some obligation to tell our story to help other people. And while that can actually be very true, it's not true for all people. And it's not true for all people at all times. And only you know your timing and your process, but just know you don't have to. But if you find yourself ready, and you want to tell your story, I want you to know I'm here for it. Okay? I'm here for it. No matter who you are, if you have a reflection, whether you're second gen or any member that has joined this community from any continent, from anywhere, know that if it's time to tell your story, I'm here for it. So don't feel that you can't come forward. But I've also just have dealt with interactions that maybe it's just not the right time for you to tell your story, and that's just okay. So hear me there. I also want to make an announcement that the Under the Yoga Mat book right now is available on audio for only €2. And if that is the best way for you to be able to consume information, it's a great way to get the information of the Under the Yoga Mat. And we are going to talk about that on today's episode. I just wanted to highlight that here in the beginning. If you haven't read the book, please get it. And last but not least, on October 23rd, 2024, coming up is the documentary series on HBO Max called Breath of Fire. It is the first of four series, 4-part series that will be the following Wednesdays after October 23rd. So get yourself in position to be able to get access and watch that, and to get the support you need for what that is going to entail, no matter where you are in your process. So, all right. I want to move forward with who our guests are for today. Just wanted to give those forward announcements. And today we are going to be talking about the announcement of the Spanish channel called Cleaning the Yoga Mat. And it's an announcement with Rodolfo Caro and Ivan Sanchez. So I'm going to read their bios. Rodolfo Caro, formerly Bhajanjeet Singh, became a Kundalini yoga instructor in 2004 and integrated his home, family, and spa business into the lifestyle brand of promoting Kundalini yoga and Sikh Dharma over the next 18 years in Guadalajara, Mexico. He was even a International Kundalini Yoga Teacher Association board member of Mexico board member until 2018, when he began to disconnect from his local sangat community because of incongruency at a local level. But in 2020, when the book Premka came out, he began to confront the dark side of Kundalini Yoga for real. After the Beyond the Cage Facebook group, reading the AOB report, listening to the Uncomfortable Conversations 3HO podcast, and all the other material that became available, Rodolfo began to deprogram and figure out his own practice, totally removing himself from the cult of Kundalini Yoga. He's a bodyworker and massage therapist, spa owner of Canto Yoga and Spa in Guadalajara, Mexico, content creator for health and mind. And he is currently helping translate the Under the Yoga Mat book, along with working with Els Kunin to get a Spanish version for Latin America of the Under the Yoga Mat book here. And he is going to come to talk about the creation of the YouTube channel for continuing these conversations started on the Uncomfortable Conversation podcast, but to make these stories available for the Spanish community. He's partnering along with Ivan Sanchez, who is also known as Siddhi Om Singh, and he actually came on the Uncomfortable Conversations podcast on episode 48, so you can hear his personal story. But a little background on him: Ivan was in the Kundalini Yoga cult from 2006 to 2021. He was a Kundalini Yoga instructor for 11 years, taking his first teacher training by 2009. His mentors were Tadin Tadinkar, Shiv Chadan Singh from Portugal, Tadin Tadinkar from USA, and Guru Jota Singh in Mexico, who founded the Rama Kundalini Yoga School in Mexico City. As an instructor, he achieved level 2 certification in his training as a Kundalini Yoga teacher, and he was a member of the Aquarian Teacher Academy, which is the next level, like how you really get into the teacher training system of Kundalini Yoga, as a leading trainer to teach courses and training for future teachers. But in 2020, he discovered the book White Bird in a Golden Cage by Pamela Dyson, and also came across the book Trust All for Nothing, My Time Serving Yogi Bhajan by Waheguru Kar, and saw himself reflected in many of these statements of physical and psychological abuse that he finds in these documents, and he decided to investigate and realized that thousands of other people around the world were raising their voices and talking about the abuse in 3HO and Kundalini Yoga and KRI. He began to separate himself from the lifestyle at that time and from what he called the white sect. And since then, since doing his story and coming out and speaking out, Ivan has been pointed out and attacked by people who consider that he is harming the community, the Kundalini Yoga community, and the teachings of Yogi Bhajan. However, that does not stop him from continuing to raise his voice and helping more people realize the deceptions and manipulation in which they can fall by the misnamed Kundalini Yoga community. Currently, after a process of therapy and with the help of his partner and great friends, he's managed to heal many emotional wounds. He's decided to continue raising his voice because after 4 years, Kundalini Yoga teachers are continuing to just teach their classes. And so he's, for this reason, wanting to partner with Rodolfo and Els Kunin to share information in Spanish in Mexico and Latin America, since a lot of guidance is needed due to the language difference with regions from the United States and Europe. So that was a mouthful, but I'm happy to have you both on. And Rodolfo and Ivan, thank you so much for doing your work, for taking the stories and bringing it into your communities in ways that go beyond my capacity for sure. But also I want to point out, one of you is in Guadalajara, Mexico, and one of you is in Mexico City. And so this is an important part of what I think we should highlight on this podcast today, because Kundalini Yoga is all through Latin America, Mexico. You two are examples of people that got involved in the early 2000s and became super teachers. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thanks to all the audience for letting us invite all of you to take a look also in this other channel that is the continuity of this work about spreading the truth, about fighting for justice for all the members of the Kundalini Yoga practice who suffered in the past, and to reveal all the stories that will continue arising, or as you're mentioning, from the people that feels ready to share their personal story and trying to the past wounds to be addressed, to be listened to, be contained in love and support. And it's my pleasure to be part of this project and to help to spread all what happened in this spiritual path in the book, because most of the information, the wonderful information that you collected for us, is mostly in English. So it's very important to have it in the Spanish translation. So the members of the Kundalini Yoga community in Mexico and Latin America be aware of what happened, because mostly on the local ashrams or the local communities are still these stories that everything was only gossip, that everything is fake. And it's very important that the practitioners of that yoga lifestyles listen to the stories, and just to have both sides of the story, not only the perfect and pure aspects of the lifestyle, but also the collective shadow in it. And it's very important so they can decide how to move forward to the future, especially for those of us who have small family members, children in our families, and to be aware that when we decide to continue as if nothing ever happened, we are being part of another possible uh, victim in the group, in the cult. So it is very important to do that work. In my case, I am father of three young daughters. So I was just so close to send them to India in Miri Piri. And when I realized all the stories revealed in the second generation members, as you, Guru Nishan, it was earthquake in my soul. So we need to be conscious and be aware of it, so we can take conscious
Yeah, I
decisions
think you
also.
bring up such a
And
good
thanks for
point in that
having us here.
just going away and starting to do your own thing, but not speaking out to it can actually cause more harm, because all of us at some level or some degree, if you were a Kundalini yoga teacher, you participated in perpetuating harm, in promoting a technology or a consciousness or a way of life or a path, and then to suddenly just stop, but not to give any explanation, to not speak intentionally about what we know to be true, survivor stories that are out here. It's a part of why I'm moved by your passion to do this, because I know why I moved to do this. And I don't speak Spanish. So if I have people in my community that I had been promoting to in my own language, I would want to be able to have those as a resource to be able to make sure my community could listen, because there's a lot of people in America and in Europe who do speak English and aren't listening, right? So we already have that barrier. But if the information is at least translated, at least now the information is available for your communities to start hearing, because both of you were prominent teachers. You weren't just little people, you were big people in your communities.
Exactly. And for instance, speaking about the language limits, another interesting comparison is like the revelation of this new documentary, Breath of Fire, that people that we are aware of this documentary we are commenting about that this will not be released in every country. And people as Harijiwan is going to a Hungarian country, and there this information won't be available there, isn't it? So it's important to break all the barriers of the language for this information to be in a worldwide environment, so more people is ready to decide if they participate in the teacher training and the workshop, wherever, because they have both sides of the story.
Sorry about that. My English is very little. And Rodolfo speaks.
Yo puedo traducirte, Iván, si deseas. Ajá.
Algo que platicábamos es que también aquí nos topamos mucho con pared, con las personas que realmente parece como que no tienen mucho interés en saber todo lo que está pasando dentro, ¿no?
We also here in Mexico have those difficulties to be aware of people that it seems that they are not interested in knowing what is happening right now in the community.
He visto todavía muchas personas con las cuales yo trabajé que también en algún momento, no puedo asegurar, pero tal vez también sufrieron una especie de trauma, pero ellos siguen como si nada impartiendo y promoviendo sus clases, y a las personas les sigue interesando mucho lo que ellos hacen.
And he have seen a lot of people where he used to work with as a team in the past, and he can see that they decided to keep or continue sharing the classes and the technology, and is as if nothing ever happened, and like
And it's
continuing as
heartbreaking,
usual.
right? And so to know that those folks are choosing to not listen to survivor stories that they used to tell stories about, that they used to sell tickets for. And so one thing I want to highlight is that we know that Mexico City is ripe, fertile ground, as in is Latin America. And we know that the Kundalini Yoga KRI brand is just reinventing and rebirthing itself and just carrying on, right? And of course, there was the attempt to totally rebrand, but they're back to just promoting YB, which at least it's the right face. They're saying the thing that it is, but there's so many people that are carrying on teaching. And even though that happens here, what else Kunin is doing with Under the Yoga Mat, and the reason that collaboration came about is because we want a better tool to be able to get into the hand of somebody that doesn't know, that has chosen not to come and listen. And that book is a phenomenal intro to be able to start
Mhm.
realizing that there's a ton of information that you can start digging into if and when you're ready, including my podcast, including all the other material that's out there. So translating the Under the Yoga Mat became the project that we focused on, and Rodolfo reached out and connected to else so that that can move on. And I want listeners to hear that we want this type of support in all the languages, because this is the case in Europe. This is the case in China. This is the case in any place that KRI is going to continue to try to spread the teachings. But why Mexico is so important that we focus on, and why I'm so
Exactly.
excited to highlight you too, and I want you to say whatever you want to highlight about this project, is we already know that for many decades, there have been senior teachers that both of you promoted that have fertile ground in Mexico City. And they're going to continue to do what they've always done: teach Kundalini yoga, promote Aquarian age, do the things. So I think that's why it's so important you two are doing the work to translate the content, speak out as teachers, and bring this project to life. Yeah.
Una de las, una de las cosas que he platicado con Rodolfo es invitar a maestros mexicanos, a ex maestros mexicanos, a que cuando ellos se sientan listos hagan una declaración, algo, para que también ellos puedan liberarse un poquito y puedan expresar todo lo que en todo este tiempo no han podido.
One of the things that we were discussing with each other is to invite to all the Mexican instructors, yoga, Kundalini yoga instructors, to share something about these revelations. At least they can free themselves a little bit from this responsibility, from this position where they are on, where they can be part of the solution,
So
not part of the problem.
what do you think is stopping them? Is it that they don't have the spaces to be able to ask these types of questions to themselves, or they're getting more influenced by the community just pretending that it doesn't matter?
Well, in my personal opinion, I think that there is still the very same code structure that is like sending subtle messages about, like, for instance, here in Mexico, we keep receiving this kind of sentences like support the community and the community will support you, and that is the subtle way to, like, hey, don't speak ill of Kundalini yoga, and you will still have a family, you will still have this spiritual light surrounding you, and don't be bad, don't be the dark side, don't be a Sith from the Star Wars story. Don't you, like, keep being the Jedi warrior. And I think is that called environment, is that mentality about trying to be like the right persons in a spiritual path. Don't speak ill, don't have this type of negative conversations, don't reveal anything that can cause harm to other people because they are suffering if they know the truth, you know,
Elevated.
like keep the teachings at the top, keep this light work that we have been done since several decades ago. That's my point of reference. Ivan, what do you think? What's yours?
Algo que yo he notado mucho por lo que las personas no hablan es que aquí en México vale mucho, y se interpreta mucho el que a la gente no le gusta ser señalada, no le gusta ser apartada, no le gusta ser como rebelde, porque los rebeldes siempre son problemáticos y siempre están como mal de su cabeza. Entonces a la gente prefiere muchas veces, lo platicábamos en esta cultura del silencio, prefiere callar para no crear problemas y para no crearse problemas ellos mismos.
In his personal opinion, he thinks that people in Mexico is still insisting in being like good elements, in being good members of the Kundalini yoga community because they don't want to be pointed out, they don't want to be dismissed, they don't want to be rejected as someone problematic, isn't it? Because they are speaking about the negativity in the spiritual path, so deciding not to be pointed out or rejected, they keep silence. They don't participate in this
I
kind of
think that this is a really
movements.
important
Así es.
thing to highlight because it's an overall 3HO culture of shame, using shame and silence, but using the teachings as a way to kind of say it's more elevated, it's more conscious of you to stay silent than it is to speak up about what's going on, right? And they know there's like a couple of people that might be speaking out, and so they want to do this like collective public shaming so that anybody that's on the fence towards listening to those people won't listen to that. They might be more susceptible to messages, but it's a discord or a language discourse of abuse, of silencing people by using kind of spiritual rhetoric.
Exactly. And you know, Guru Nishan, it's necessary to have a certain dignity, to don't wait for the community to reject you, to apply the, how else mention that,
Shunning.
shunning,
Mhm.
what's the name for it? Like mandatory shunning to appear, but to decide by ourselves as individuals when we are in a position like that, to decide to, I have to let go what used to be in my life. I need to step out of this because I don't sense any integrity here, because I am being aware of this dark side that is
Counterintuitive.
I don't know if it's correct to use that word. To be here and to like be aware of things that are not what we are spreading as a culture or as a philosophy or as a lifestyle. It doesn't match, and deciding by ourselves as individuals to, okay, I will move on from this place, from these teachings. It is connected to a certain dignity that we recognize in ourselves because we are valuable, because we are part of God, because we deserve to be in places where we feel that we are keeping
Mhm.
for something that needs to be done.
Sí, y es muy evidente cómo cuesta trabajo para muchas personas salirse de ese círculo. Se cierran, se quedan y muchas personas a mí me lo han dicho. Pues sí, a lo mejor sí, sí es una comunidad dura, a lo mejor sí ha habido cosas feas, pero también me ha ido muy bonito ahí adentro. También me he sentido muy bien, también me han ayudado mucho. Es lo que a mí me han dicho.
Yeah, and Ivan says that he has been told by another community members that they mentioned that, okay, it's a hard lifestyle, it's a hard environment, but also I have found very spiritual experiences and very elevated experiences here. So has both light and shadow. So
Yeah, which is
let's
pretty
keep
sick,
staying here.
right? Because it basically means that they
Yes.
don't know, or they're choosing to pretend that they don't know that YB was a rapist and a sadist, and he groomed children of our community into his realm amongst other women that were in his devoted service. amongst all the children that went to the school. Like, it tells me that person hasn't really listened yet, because they're taking some sort of morsel of what some teacher might have said and they're just regurgitating it. It just sounds like Kundalini yoga propaganda.
Exactly, and it's rooted nowadays. It is still connected to this obedience. I only have to listen what the local lead trainer says, and I have to keep being obedient
This
if
is an
I want
important
to
thing
be
you're
in the grace
saying,
of
though,
God.
because that is one of the essence of, I think, the hypnotic things YB did. And it's in the teachings. You obey, serve, love, excel. It's in this whole thing of submitting to your teacher. And
Exactly.
Ivan, I think you can speak to this. Some people on the podcast have talked about when they got into the Aquarian Academy, how there was so much selfless service, and so much of dedicating yourself to the path is showing this dedication to the higher ups. And even Rodolfo, you can speak to how the higher ups kind of felt entitled to things when they weren't even investing their time to have awareness of what was going on, and how incongruent that felt. Bef- I, I guess, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. It's like, as my personal experience, when there was a time when we received being part of the Sikh Dharma movement here in Mexico, when we received the City Guru Granth Sahib in our home, here in Guadalajara, Mexico, when we started to offer gurdwaras in our yoga center, it started like like a war, like a local war from gurdwaras, which one is the best, which one is the approved one, which one is the gurdwara that you have to go because that's the gurdwara from the local lead trainer, and the rest of the gurdwaras are not the ones that you have to follow because that's not the part of the hierarchy or hierarchy. I don't know how to say it, but I decided, is this what I want in my life? Certainly not. I will not continue offering gurdwaras because I am experiencing this totally opposite of what I want or what I would like to feel. you know, I would not use the City Guru Granth Sahib for like a kind of internal war and a position of power who has more influence or power over the people. And there are those moments where people like me, we have to decide if we continue doing that or not. You know,
Well
that
said.
if that really makes sense about it.
Sí, y
En tu opinión, Iván.
hablando acerca de la academia, de mi experiencia en la academia acuariana, cuando me hicieron la primera entrevista para poder aceptarme en la academia, me hicieron una entrevista vía Zoom y me leyeron varios puntos que tenía yo que tener muy consciente. Y uno de esos puntos era, sabes bien que no se te va a pagar, ¿verdad? Sabes bien que esto es un servicio a la comunidad. Ese fue el punto uno.
And Ivan says that when he decided to attend to the Aquarian Academy, he received his first interview, and one of the first topics that he was mentioned about is, okay, you want to be part of this Aquarian Academy, so the most important thing is, are you aware that you are not going to be paid for that?
Ese fue el punto número uno y te lo aclaran mucho. El segundo punto fue, mucho de tu tiempo vas a tener que ocuparlo o lo vas a ocupar para hacer servicio a la comunidad, sea cual sea el servicio, pero nunca me dijeron que ese servicio era extremo en muchos casos.
And the second aspect of the interview is that if he was aware of that he would start doing seva, like community service, and he never was mentioned about the amount of service that he had to do being part of the Aquarian Academy. And most of that type of duties were very hard to do, were very like stressful.
Y al final, una de las cosas que te hacen es, te dicen, todo esto vas a acumular puntos, acumulas créditos para ir subiendo de nivel, para ir aumentando tu capacidad como maestro y para que te vayamos dejando dar clases y para que puedas ir creciendo dentro de la academia.
And finally, if you do that, Ivan, you will start collecting like credits, and when you collect those types of credits, that will give you the permission to start growing and to start having like a certain status in the pyramid scheme, you know. But you have to collect the credits. You have to collect these special units in the structure.
Cada año en la Ciudad de México se realiza una reunión de Sikh Dharma de todos los maestros. Le decía yo a Rodolfo que era como una reunión con el padrino, como que venía, en este caso era Tarantaran Singh, y venía como el padrino y se reunía en todas las diferentes academias. Platicando.
And once a year here in Mexico, it was organized a special reunion every year, and it was like a kind of stepfather reunion where Tarantaran Singh used to come to Mexico and like join it with the community in Mexico.
Y platicando con una de las chicas, una de las personas que yo no conocía, le digo, yo estoy haciendo servicio aquí en la academia y me dice, yo también. Y le digo, ¿cuántos años llevas haciendo servicio? Todavía estaba en el mismo nivel que yo, hasta abajo. Y me dice, llevo 10 años haciendo servicio y para mí fue como un shock impresionante. Yo llevaba 2 años o 3. Yo dije, no, yo no puedo hacer eso.
And when he got the opportunity to speak with another girl in that meeting, he asked to this girl, "Hey, how long have you been here doing seva in this experience, in this movement?" And the girl said or answered, "Oh, I have 10 years of seva here." So for him was like a shock. No, she is at the bottom of this hierarchy as me, so I don't have the energy. I don't have this interest of doing 10 or more years to be like, getting
Yeah,
position
and
or
Ivan, you had
earning
mentioned
points.
working with Shiv Charan, Taran,
Yeah.
and Guru Jota Singh. And Guru Jota Singh, from my understanding, is the one who founded the Rama Institute in Mexico City. So that's still quite prominent and growing today. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so as you speak out and you talk
Yes,
about the
es
community
correcto.
like attacking you, you're speaking out because this was your community. This is who you taught for. This is where you grew your lifestyle. Like you even use the name City Om or Guru City Ganesha. Like you're still kind of in the process of the disconnection because your life was so infused in Mexico City and the teacher training system and your devotion to growing that Rama Kundalini Institute this is a new transition. Do you not talk to him anymore? Or does he not talk to you anymore?
En 2018 yo sufrí una humillación muy fuerte por parte de Guru Yoda frente a todo el grupo de maestros y todos ellos se quedaron callados y yo decidí ya después separarme de toda la comunidad y de todo esto, todo lo que pasó. Sin embargo,
In,
adelante.
in 2018, he suffered a very strong public humiliation from his local trainer, Guru Joda, in front of the whole staff of teachers. And for him, it was very hard to leave that.
Entonces yo dejé pasar el tiempo, me separé y tiempo después, cómo son las cosas, me escribieron 3 personas de ese grupo, tres maestros que estaban a mi nivel, entrenándose también, me escribieron para pedirme disculpas, cada uno por su cuenta, por no haber hablado en el momento, porque se dieron cuenta que me estaba humillando y ellos prefirieron callar. Recibí sus disculpas, les dije que estaba bien y eso fue todo, no hemos vuelto a tener comunicación.
After that, when he decided to retire himself from this staff, he received compliments from three partners in the staff, from three other teachers, because all of them expressed like, I am sorry with you because we got aware that you were being humiliated and we decided to keep silent. So sorry for that. Please forgive us. And that was his experience from that moment.
Yes. Y
¿Y ahorita llevas una interacción con Guru Yoda y con Shiv Charan o no?
no, cero interacción con ellos, con Guru Yoda, con Shivsharan, con Tarantaran. Yo perdí todo contacto por voluntad propia. Yo decidí alejarme completamente.
Well, he says that he actually doesn't have any connection, any contact with Guru Yoda, Shiv Charan, or Tarantaran Singh because he
And do
decided
you
not to
know
keep
how
connected with
the
them.
teacher training is going? As you said in your bio, they're just carrying on as normal. So you're seeing normal teacher trainings being promoted and teachers coming in like before?
No, esta formación de maestros de la cual estoy enterado que inicia en diciembre es por 3 maestras que estaban precisamente en el grupo de formación al cual yo pertenecía. Ya no es por parte ni de Guru Yoda, ni de ellos ya no están dentro, sino son 3 maestras, alumnas, igual que yo, entrenadoras que ya van a dar su formación ellas.
Yeah,
Desconozco. Ujú.
as he is aware of this next teacher training that is coming into Mexico City next December, is led by three members where he used to be, like three other students where he was learning in the Aquarian Academy. And these three students in that time now teach lead trainers
Got it.
are
Got it.
promoting the
Yeah,
new
that's interesting. And
teacher
I
training.
know here I've
Yes.
watched people just carry on promoting in the Chicago area, the next, white tantric yoga and the just carrying on. And I find it so fascinating whether people are choosing not to listen or just their livelihood is so bound in the lifestyle, and so they can't actually afford to let themselves hear it because it would break up too much. Like what you're saying, Rodolfo, to start looking at the shadow means that a lot of stuff in your unconscious might come to the surface. And I think sometimes these teachers are carrying on just so that they don't really go into that.
And Guru Nisha, in my perspective about it, I think it's a matter of money. It's a matter of business. Because when I used to take teacher training 20 years ago, I had to pay an amount of 30,000 pesos. An average to 30,000 pesos. That would be like $1,500, if I am correct. Multiply that for 20 or 30 assistants to each teacher training. So they see like a profitable environment to collect money. So most of the people that is aware of these dark shadow aspects of Kundalini Yoga, a lot of people decide to keep in silence because they don't want to dismiss or deny the amount of money that they can receive if they keep going in that structure. That's
Cash cow.
my perception about it.
Yes, una de las cosas que yo me di cuenta, yo seguía haciendo servicio y me seguía durmiendo en un sillón porque no había lugar para mí en una cama. Y yo veía la cantidad de dinero, yo estaba al tanto de la cantidad de dinero que entraba y pues sí, yo veía que los maestros pues ya tenían su casa en Valle de Bravo y tenían un jeep y tenían lugares. Y no es porque yo quisiera tener lo mismo que ellos, pero entonces yo me di cuenta que todo era un negocio. Me di cuenta que Kundalini Yoga era realmente un producto.
And Ivan says that when he was part of the Aquarian Academy, he used to sleep in a couch or coach,
Coach.
because there were not a lot of beds available. So he was aware of the amount of money that this movement was collecting, and it realized that much of these trainers were buying a house at Bravo Valley here in Mexico. That is, like a top place for rich people, and buying a Jeep car, like. And that awareness was not because Ivan was not interested, but because he was realizing that people doing that kind of business were
Yeah.
benefit of that, you know?
Yes, y que Kundalini se volvió un producto, no una mercancía.
And Kundalini Yoga was an excellent
Yeah, and we
product
see that
for
here. So
collect
I
money,
agree with
collecting
you
money.
that the income, so many teachers aren't stopping because the income that it produces for them, and to really allow themselves, like, and that's why I think what you're doing and why these stories, survivor stories, are so important, because that's a form of denial. I know that for the senior teachers here that I see staying on these teacher training circuits, when they know children of this Dharma have been raped and sodomized and abused chronically, your soul's got to reckon with that, as what you're talking about, Rodolfo. Like, are you a person of integrity? And I know for myself, I worked very, very hard to detangle the Kundalini yoga indoctrination out of my cellular system. And it's took me a full decade before 2020 got revealed. So it's just been a long journey. And I know that a part of this is to do what you're talking about, to be in integrity, to realize I can't teach what this community doesn't stand for. There's no such thing as the teaching separate from the teacher, because the teachings were used to manipulate and rape and groom our children.
Mm-hmm.
Así es.
Exactly. It's necessary, like a very hard process to dig in our personal experiences, and decide what we will have to do about it. What are we calling in our inner soul to respond to that? Okay, now you know that not all of the experiences are in the utopic realms, but what you decide to do with this information that you have with you now.
Entonces yo me pregunto, ¿dónde queda la conciencia? Entonces, ¿dónde está la llamada conciencia, la llamada yoga de la conciencia? ¿No? ¿Qué trabajo ha
So,
realizado?
yeah, Ivan says, so I question myself, where is consciousness? Where is the consciousness in my life with all the work that I have been done in the past
That's right.
through
And it's
this
why I really
technology?
encourage all of us and all of our listeners to really seek out cult specific therapy and support. I'll say I also know it's not easy. A lot of us can't afford it. There's not so many of them, and the ones that there are expensive. But even cult support groups, I found, for me, have been extremely helpful, because there really is something I've learned within cultic studies, but specifically from Yanya Lalich. She talks about when you move into the leadership roles of an organization and you start becoming a person of influence and teaching other people, there is a different level of deprogramming that we have to go through, different from just being a member who joins, because you do perpetuate
Mm.
technology and language and discourse that is predatory, but you did it unintentionally because you were following a training system. And that is a different level of personal reconcile that we all have to face as former teachers or proselytizers of Sikh Dharma. But that's why I think cult support and cult group support is so good and valuable, because that's not easy. And so speaking out is a part of that level of reconciliation, as far as I'm concerned. It's a part of the process of just shining light into the dark spaces that were there all along, but some part of me didn't have the capacity to see it then.
Exactly. And for instance, there are aspects like when we are in a position of student, how we normalize these stories. Like for instance, I remember one of the stories of YB, like when he was the student and he received punishment and he was beaten and he had a hard time with his master Sanchez Singh, and he like give this advice: in order to be a good teacher, learn to be a good student. So receive all the shit, and you can perpetuate the shit when you are in that
That's what
position.
builds the hierarchy.
Yes, yes,
Especially for those who feel like they did a lot of sacrifices when being a student. So when they had an influence position, so they are allowed to do whatever they think that it's good for the student, because he suffered in the past, because he had hard times doing seva or whatever, being unpaid. So if you didn't receive money when you were doing seva, now that you
Yeah,
are leaving,
there's a level of
collect all the money
entitlement
that
that's
you
built
can.
into that.
recolecta
Now
todas
it's
tus
your
nueces.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yes, sí, recolecta todo lo que puedas, porque ese es tu momento, así lo decíamos, ¿no? Ese es tu momento, recolecta todo lo que puedas, gana todo, porque ya hiciste mucha ceba, ya hiciste mucho trabajo, ya es tu momento, y entonces se vuelve un círculo normalizado para nosotros, también repetir los mismos patrones, ¿no? Y hacer con los alumnos, con los nuevos alumnos, que pasen por lo mismo que tú pasaste muchas veces, ¿no?
Yes, I would say that you can realize in your own experience that you can apply this interpretation. Now is your moment. This is your time. Collect the most you can, because you were in that position in the past. So when you are a lead for the next generation, you can be in a position of take normalize this system, normalize this environments, because
Yeah, and
you went through
normalizing
this in the
usury,
past.
but calling it seva,
Yes.
and how built into the system and structure of Kundalini Yoga teacher training that is. I hope those of you that are listening to this podcast that grew up or were in this cult in the 70s are hearing this, because one of the main messages I want to get across today is that just because you leave or you wake up and you start seeing how crazy this Kundalini Yoga white sect cult is, doesn't mean it doesn't carry on and continue. They just carry on and put blinders on and pretend that everything we're saying isn't being said. And you want to know why? Because that's exactly what YB did in 1970 and 72 and 78 and 82 and 85. And like, this is the formula. And that's why we're trying to disrupt it, because the teachings themselves that talk about neutrality or talk about the fact that there's some sort of transformation here that is so superb and so amazing in consciousness. And yet it allows people to collectively go blind when people are speaking out loud about generational abuse, and not just a little bit abuse, but systemic, sadistic rape abuse and other types of abuse. These things have always gone on. And now those same tools through your stories are telling us that formula is alive and well. not just in America, but in Europe, in Mexico, wherever teacher trainings are furthering being produced in the name of the master, in the name of consciousness, in the name of awareness.
In the name also of spirituality. For instance, it comes to my mind that there was a time that a known local in Mexico City, that is the one that has all the connections and all the control over the concerts coming to Mexico. You know who I am speaking about, Ivan. These persons who has all the artists from Spirit Voyage and all the Kundalini Yoga artists that comes to Mexico to offer concerts. These kind of persons is like or acting like taking all what he knows in the environment to collect all the money that he thinks he deserves to take because of that approach of collecting money or doing business. Because if any other member of the community would like to organize a concert, for instance, with a Snatam card, it's not allowed. You have to start connecting with the political aspects, with the regional environment, who is the owner of this piece of land, and what can you do, what you cannot do. And it's like Ivan mentioned, it's like a mafia, and you have to know how to move in order to offer another spiritual experience to your students or to your members of the city, um, but this happened when I went to the first summer solstices. In my personal experience, I had the chance to speak with these people doing yoga and sadhanas there, and when I found myself doing my washing the dishes at the kitchen, then I found people like telling me, "Hey, Bhajanjeet, do you want to organize a workshop in Guadalajara? Look for certain trainer here because he only likes, adore the money, and you only have to talk with him about the profits, how much is for him, how much will be for you, and then organize whatever you want. But like here is the buffet to organize how collect more money." And I thought to myself, what? But, this is the position of a lot of people coming here looking for women, looking for business, looking for something that I was not even thinking in my mind.
Looking for power,
For power.
looking for power, stealing in the name of the guru.
Yeah, and also when there was a time here in Guadalajara for White Tantra Yoga, at that moment this person was trying to organize a concert with Matamandir Singh about Nat Yoga, and he arranged something for with a couple of women that the name of her their company at that moment was the name of Semilla Yacuna, I think.
Yeah.
And they contacted me and told me, hey, but this person asked us to contact you to help us to promote the concert. So we have all the flyers with us. Can you help us to spread that a concert is coming to Guadalajara? And we will put behind the flyer an image of Guru Ramdas, so the local leader trainer won't stop you in promoting like a prayer, but at the same time we will promote a concept. Like we have to win this, conquering this space and this concert for our guru, and doing very
Yeah.
things
It
about that,
reminds me of my days in network marketing where you're like vying for territory and like you talked about your Gurdwara or your yoga center has to compete with these other ones and there ends up being factions. And this was very much how it was growing up, in the 3HO community. It's always had those kind of like territories, but even more when you get into promoting the yoga groups, because like you said, you're vying for certain teachers. And folks listening, you might not understand the hierarchy of how the Aquarian Academy and the teacher training system works, but essentially these senior teachers, which are basically like the original OG teachers, are set up on this like super pedestal as the ones that you have to have at least one of them in your main training, and then you can fill in the blanks of some of these other spaces. But essentially, like Rodolfo is talking about, when you go to a thing like Solstice, your kind of mentors are promoting to you on how to reel in the big dogs kind of thing, how to go and find those heavy hitter yoga promote teachers that are kind of the big name teachers. So we'll just pretend we'll explain how Guru Dev Singh was in that arena, and different main big teachers. Krishna Kar can go to Mexico, though different, but she would only go to certain ashrams, while a different person like Shiv Chudden Singh or Tudden Tudden would only go to somewhere else, because that's the way these factions start getting aligned. And it's no different than what we've heard here in the US with kind of the Rama group being Hari Jiwan and Guru Jagat and that kind of whole Hollywood scene, while there was another faction in Hollywood, which was, why am I forgetting her name right now? You all know, the Golden Bridge lady. Hmm? Guru
Ah,
Mukh. Right. So
yes,
Guru Mukh had her own
Gurumukh.
faction. So
Gurumukh.
those people have been in 3HO a long time. This is not this is not new. This type of faction among kind of the big name yoga teachers, YB would set these people against each other and created this level of competitive influence for his time and attention. And he did public shame and public adoration as a way to either publicly elevate or publicly destroy certain areas, people, movements, ashrams. And I know what you're saying in Mexico is exactly the same formula. It's just a new generation of that same abusive technique.
Yeah, by personal experience, you can, when you are in those positions, you can realize that these different areas, that these different territories, between them, they are like gossiping from one another and fighting for their territories and looking the one to the other as a wolf bearing a white skin. And it doesn't make any sense. I am not feeling like this guru opposite, like stories about betray, fraud, about like gaining positions, selling books, or writing novels, something like that, or creating festivals, or creating like movements in the name of God, collecting these, like I have this database that allows me to sell white tantra, to sell workshops, to sell concerts, and go after the database, you know. And of course, it goes like in your heart, being a witness of that. Like, is this what I want? If I want to promote my lifestyle to be in that position, no, I am not very interested in that. No, that's not the sense of spiritually growing that I would like to go after that. Or when I have an interchange with people like Harinam Singh, um, this person that is a lawyer in the 3HO community, I understand that right now is member of the new order that they kick it off on the second generation director. Like this kind of persons told me once, hey, if you want to progress in the spiritual warrior, are you ready to start not sleeping at night and receiving calls from the guerrilla, from the bad people, integrate stories about the dark side of the world? No, I am not interested in that. That for me is not about being in the realms of God. At least as I understand what world is, I understand that there are bad things and good things, but consciously deciding that you will go after have these headaches, after this, how you name it, when you don't sleep in English, insomnia,
Insomnia.
being like all the time under stress. What's that? What is that? Uh, like spiritual purpose in your life? You know, it doesn't make any sense. I asked him when I was wearing a turban and like trying to embody this holy warrior. I asked it to him because he was inviting me. By the way, he sent in advance one of his members to look out where I used to live, where is the area where the yoga center was located, so he will consider to come to my yoga center and coming to offer a workshop and started to introduce, hey, when I arrived to the yoga shala, all of you have to stand up like receiving to the master because that's the way Yogi Bayan taught us. And I say, what is happening here? And when we went to a coffee shop, um, I was like, okay, probably this is a test because I realized that all of the people who we are in the Kundalini Yoga movement or were there, like like consideramos in Spanish, or like we think that this is a spiritual test. And I thought to myself, okay, probably he's telling all those stories to test my convictions or my bravery, you know, like my sense of willingness about what he is going to share or like pass on. I don't know if is it correct to say. I will deliver you the teachings that my master gave me. And I asked him, I am going to ask you just one question. Is it worth to wear this crown? Is it worth to wear this kara? Is it worth to wear this bana? Because if I decide to go further into this spiritual path, I will find that comparing to if I go to the Vatican City, I will find light, I will find pureness, I will find the grace of God, or I will find rape and betray and all of this dark side of the story. And he kept silence.
Wow.
There was no answer. And when he didn't give me any answer, okay, I applied the critical thinking. That is an answer. Silence is an answer. So I started to like giving steps apart from the Kundalini yoga lifestyle because I thought to myself, he promotes himself around the world like being at the feet of the master during 40 years or plus. So he is like giving an example of what I will
And
go
what was this teacher's name?
to
Who was this?
if I go deeper, you know? And his name is Harinam Singh. I invited at some point of my life to offer workshops in my place. And he also invited me to, in the name of integrity, invite me and my wife to León, Guanajuato to visit his workshop that he was offering there, because he was speaking about marriage and teachings for the couples, for the marriage or the couples. So he invited us to participate, and we went there. And I had another experience that for me was not making any sense. For the first time in my life, I saw how to name it. I saw like this ancient teacher, or how, ¿cómo les decimos en México a los elder?
A los
Elder.
elder. Uh-huh.
I saw an elder, a yogic elder, without the turban, and I saw him barely with no hair under the turban. And for me, it was like something surprisingly, because I thought that I like di por hecho, or I was thinking that if we follow these techniques of like
El Rishi.
growing the hair and tying at the top of the crown, we will have a very strong hair, and we will attract all the spiritual powers. And for the first time, I saw an elder under his crown, and I saw something very different. And I started to think: is this the world that I want to go deep? Is this the archetype as was I want to take for my life? You know, but and is the thinking that you are constantly finding a place in our mind, because it's coming from the experience. What is a good experience? What is an elevated experience? What is something that you really feel God in your soul as one? And where are the
Like you're
places
saying,
that it
applying.
doesn't make any sense, you know, to leave the teachings with the other side? If you practice Kundalini Yoga and you get older with Kundalini Yoga, you will be happy, healthy, and holy. And a lot of teachers are dying with cancer in silence. A lot of teachers are having heart attacks. A lot of teachers are sick. So I was thinking to myself, what is happening? Because I am doing in my young age, I am learning about this lifestyle. But for instance, when I was receiving teacher training, my local lead trainer like tried to confront me about something from the formation I was taking. And I, from my soul came the answer, like, you cannot push me to do everything perfectly, because I am trying to learn Kundalini Yoga coming from a person that I barely know, that he died from serious sickness. And at that time when I answered that, she took off her turban, like saying, what is happening with this guy? And for me, it didn't make any sense to use like this head, like this plastic head, where you first of all you tie the turban there, and then you put it like a hat, you know
Yes.
and I saw that. I was in the first line seeing that when there was a white tantra yoga. Oh, I want to do seva. I want to go and support carrying the fruits for the event. And I saw these incongruent sides of buying the cheapest apples to offer at that event, charging huge amount of money. Like, why we are not buying organic products, healthy products? Why are we searching for the cheapest apples? And all of this questioning probably like caused like a heartbreak in the soul. Like, of course, I would like to have these first line impressions of a congruent, of an elevated mindset, of like something that invited me to love the teachings without questioning.
Yeah, because that
But
started
I could
happening for
not
you
blind
along the
myself.
way, even before the book came out. And then when the book came out, it was much bigger of a it was like a global understanding from you. Instead of just thinking it was the
Yes.
local people you were dealing with, you started to see that this was something that was at the root system of this whole culture, not just in individual personalities locally.
Yes, like for instance, when we receive like a story of the master, a story that's supposed to be very elevated. He told us a story about that when he went to when he visited the YB visited Cancun, they were walking over the beach, and there was a dead person on the beach because he was, ¿cómo se dice ahogado en inglés? ¿Tú sabes, Iván?
Ahogado, ay,
He
no, se me
died at
fue.
sea.
Like he died in the
That
sea.
he
How do you
died at
say that?
sea.
Die in the
Good
sea.
mission. Huh?
Drowned. He drowned.
Yes, like swallowing water. And
Drowning,
he
yes.
drowned. So, like, she saw that they continued walking, like next to this body, dead body. And she, at that time, being young, like asked it to the master, "Hey, master, why don't you stop and try to help that person?" And he immediately answered, "Oh, he has not any soul there. There is nothing to do there. That's why we don't stop by." But that was contraintuitive for my formation because they say you have to wear all white and wear a big crown so everybody can see you and you can come to support wherever is needed. But those stories, you apply the
Hmm,
critical mind and you say,
absolutely.
it doesn't make any sense, you know?
Yes.
At least to stop to offer like a
Yeah.
hope to those
It's,
members of
it's
you
called
are
compassion,
suffering because
right?
your family
Compassion.
died.
There wasn't actually that. They talked a lot about compassion.
Yes.
And so I hope that listeners are getting what Rodolfo and Ivan have really brought. One of the things I'm getting is how the predatory formulas that were in the very basis of Kundalini yoga, the way YB infused the community from the 70s forward, the way the teacher training systems and the marketing funnel to Sikh Dharma, all of that is being taught worldwide. I hope you hear that. So, the importance of what we're talking about on this podcast to get this information, these stories, your stories. If you speak Spanish, come tell your podcast story on their channel. So, we want people that are listening to this. You might have a gift. You might have a passion of how do you get to contribute to making sure this movement is going forward. And maybe that's in language support. Maybe that's in just supporting these gentlemen in their project because you also speak Spanish and you have stories. And it's about creating a movement here. We're not individual people telling a story. Rodolfo isn't alone in Guadalajara. Ivan isn't alone in Mexico City, but they're coming together to create a platform that allows the works of else in Belgium that transcribed the stories from this podcast and other material to make these tools available for us to get in the hands of people that are carrying on teaching Kundalini yoga. And I want you to know it does matter because while you're doing your personal deprogramming and recovery, and maybe you're not teaching, but maybe you are teaching, use that book and get it into the hands of other people. And we want to kind of put out there a way to really expose how the abusive formula is being replicated in new form through new levels of senior teachers that are being created every day.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And it's needed critical minds. It's needed to do yoga, but without this mind that it's able to see both sides of the experience at the same time, to choose integrity, to try to be better every day, not to blind yourself, not to uh, close yourself in a bubble of okay, I just have to pray, I just have to breathe, I just have to do my sadhana, and everything is gonna be perfect. And like try to find something that applies out there in a congruent mode. In a I don't
Yes.
know if it's correct to say congruent, Ivan.
Y en una de las cosas, hablando de congruencia y hablando de todo esto, algo bien importante es darse cuenta que las personas que te quieren vender, que te quieren dar una formación de maestros y que te dicen que ya todo está alejado del señor Vayan, pero siguen vistiéndose de blanco y siguen poniéndose turbantes y siguen teniendo su cara y siguen teniendo todo esto, yo difícilmente creería que está separado de las viejas prácticas todo esto.
And Ivan says that that is important. That if they are seeing that teacher training is still being promoted in Mexico, in whatever place that is taking place, that they insist in speaking of YB and wearing white clothing and wearing turbans, and like they are saying that they are not in the same track of the what happened before, that there is something new, but he doubts seriously about that. And I want to add about that, Evan Gurunishan, that recently in the group of Beyond the Cage, there was like an interesting conversation about the concert that Snatan Kaur was planning to do in Europe. Now I am realizing that she is coming in the near future to Mexico City also, and she is still promoting the cover of the CD or the new, like wearing not in white, but you can see that it's wearing in a Sikh attire, like with the folding the hands and watching to the sky, like still being a musician that is promoting the lifestyle. Of course, I understand that she was born there, that she was raised in that way, that she is in love with the Gurbani. I understand that. But we need to ask from artists like them that they need to take a position as not as a PR for 3HO and Sikh Dharma and TRI, but being ambassadors, avoiding abuses in the world and taking the chance to speak more often, not only saying those pictures and not only like promote the same mantras and the same sound currents as always, but I can see that you are a second generation survivor and you are not wearing a turban to do this, and you are not like behind of you there is not the golden temple, why can we see a differentiation about persons that suffer there and decided to take off the turbans? I know personally, I had the chance to meet the secretaries that came to Mexico to bring the white tantra yoga, and I saw like people as Guru Kiren. I met her as Guru Kiren, and I saw how she decided to took her turban and cut their hair and change her appearance. And I celebrate that because I say it's a person who was just in the inner circle and changed something in the appearance. And if something changed in the appearance, you don't have to say every time you appear in a new place, that something happened in your heart and in your soul, and something needed to change. A lot of people, a lot of teachers in Mexico changed the name in the social media, in the Facebook platforms. They used to, probably like me, I was 10 years ago. Now my name is Rodolfo Caro. I am being aware of a lot of teachers that changed their spiritual name again to the civil name. But how many of them are being activists about speaking of it, about like having the chance to share their personal stories and say, I used to teach Kundalini yoga, I used to do seva, I used to do sadhana, and something changed in me. You will notice that I changed my name because I realized that I was in a cult. I realized that my spiritual master that I took was a rapist. And that is a service for humanity. Share the experience.
Yes.
I invested 10 or 15 or 20 years of my life trying to be a searchlight, trying to be a good soul, trying to be a good human being. And I found after 20 years that I was in a cult, following a
I see.
man that was not certainly a saint.
Yes.
And this is something this is not Bhajanjeet sharing his story. This is Rodolfo Caro. In my personal experience, I took a spiritual name searching for divinity. I took a lifestyle searching for a healthy lifestyle. I took a community because I wish to be, I was wanting to be part of a healthy family because I came from a family where my parents used to like to hit me as a Mexican move or, because that was normalized. And at some point when I was 6 years old, when my mother beat me, I turned around to my mother and I told her, "Why you have me if you don't love me?" I took something in my bag and I left my home. I was walking 3 hours continuously to go away from my home. And then the night came and I got afraid and I returned to my secure place that was that sick environment. But now I am 46 years old. And now, if I am quitting, I will say, I am part of God. I won't accept any violence against me, against my family.
Yes.
I will
That's right.
not accept abuse in the name of God. And that's why I decided to do that channel to call Ivan. Hey, Ivan, you have this strength to speak what you know. Can we join together to do something and to build a new sense of community, sharing what we know, trying to stop abuse? And he, by the grace of God, he say yes. And we got in touch. Hey, Guru Nishan, can we continue spreading about your excellent work? Can we still speak about these 11 principles to have this calling to conversations like this, uncomfortable conversations, in the name of truth and justice, not gossip, not trying to hurt these persons in the past? Mm, my local trainer is already dead. He died, you know? And people will say, hey, don't speak about her. But it's part of my memoir, it's part of my story. And I want my
Yes.
children
Yes.
learn about my story.
Yes.
I forgive myself if I cause any harm to other persons. I forgive myself. if that result of creating a channel and joining with people like you. But my intention is not to hurt anyone. Is opposite to that. Is helping my three daughters and other children whose parents are taking Kundalini yoga to don't suffer again as the first
Thank you.
generation in Miripiri, second, third, you know,
Thank you.
as the woman break.
I could feel your passion, and I'm really grateful that you shared all that, because I really feel that's what's necessary as we heal and recover ourselves in this process, is we find where our gift is to add to the process. Not everybody does the same thing. So if you're listening to this, folks, there's
Mhm.
always a way to contribute to the storytelling process. So if your gift is translating or supporting other people to get certain things available in your community, then we're here for this conversation. Please, once again, get the Under the Yoga Mat book if you haven't got that already. It's a fantastic book that has the timelines juxtaposed. So you'll hear different survivor stories that are talking about the same timeline. And this to me is some of the most profound part of this, is when you hear survivor stories overlapped around other information that was always available, it starts to crack the indoctrination that Rodolfo is talking about, of what it means to be a good human, to live in integrity, to start thinking about what's in plain sight, and to be a voice for change. Because while we're healing, we can absolutely contribute to other people waking up in the process, because we can't just let Kundalini yoga teachers carry on blindly, because a whole nother generation of kids and a whole nother generation of people are going to be abused, because that's how these cults work. Any last words before we wrap up here, gentlemen?
Así es.
Iván, yo hablé mucho,
Está
por
muy bien,
favor,
está muy
comparte
bien.
tú.
Está muy bien. Representas mucho de mi sentir, representas mucho de lo que yo también pienso. Y solo para cerrar esto, realmente creo que para cerrar mi parte también, creo que es bien importante hacer este trabajo por la gente, por los niños, para que esto no se repita, porque no somos 5, no somos 10, somos muchas personas en todo el mundo y nuestras historias son muy parecidas. Y en México decimos, si el río suena es porque agua lleva. Entonces no estamos mintiendo, estamos haciendo un trabajo desde el corazón y queremos ser escuchados porque realmente se está tratando de llegar con la verdad a todas estas personas, ¿no?
Ivan says you represent much of how I feel, much of how I think. So I just want to say that we are doing this work because it's necessary for the people. And in Mexico, we have a saying: when the river sounds, is because it has water on it. And we are asking to people like, hey, what's the water on the river that is sounding very loud, and inviting to people to read under the yoga mat book, to watch as a reverence to the survivors, uncomfortable conversations YouTube channel and podcast format, and to have this connection of these conversations. This is not gossip. These are stories of truth,
Yeah, and one of
are
the highest
experiences
forms
Yes.
from our
of
journey.
healing and integration and collective consciousness is to share your personal experience. It is what I'm learning in therapy. Some of the most profound healing that we get is relational healing when we're witnessed in our experience. So don't let your Kundalini yoga teachers tell you that listening to stories or telling your story is gossip, because that's a part of the abusive language that has kept us in silence and secrecy for 50 plus years. I want to encourage all listeners, if you're listening to this and you can support the translation process of Under the Yoga Mat book in any language, I invite you to reach out. The email is in the show notes. We need all the support we can get. So any support to just get that on more distribution in more countries and more accessibility. On that note, anyone who knows how to help me on my YouTube channel make sure that I have all of the episodes language friendly for different translations. I think that there's a simpler way to do this within the YouTube format, but maybe you're listening to this and you're technology friendly and you know how to do that so that the episode can come on and people can play it with, you know, whatever subtitles they need. I think that might be a formatting issue on my side, but I don't know those things. So feel free to lend your gifts to further the cause of us getting these survivor stories out to the people that haven't yet heard them. The Under the Yoga Mat book is an excellent format to be able to do that a little bit more simply than telling somebody to listen to a podcast, unless people want to listen to a podcast. So that's why we have it as an audio book as well. I want to congratulate you two for starting this YouTube channel in Spanish, for knowing how important it is to amplify this work and then to bring your gifts and to really bring this to Mexico City and Latin America. May we do this worldwide, and may we disrupt the rebranding and the blind fury that is infused in the Kundalini Yoga culture.
Guru Nishan, in the past, we at least I speak by myself. I felt in the past very proud to belong to a worldwide community. And I would like to point this in this worldwide scenario that Kundalini Yoga right now is, as a community, as community members, we it would be very helpful to know where exactly the teacher trainings are taking place right now. If they are delivered in Russia, in China, in Mexico, in Africa, to call to the community to translate that book to all of the countries where the teacher training is taking place.
Yes.
Because we need to deliver the information if they will receive the sacred teachings, that they receive also the dark side resulting from this also. It's necessary to have a whole experience.
Yes.
It's necessary to understand that if a family is deciding to send their children to India in the name of the pure souls becoming saint warriors, also be aware of the
That's right. And I
dangers
like
that
what you're
they will
talking
be
about,
exposed.
creating a collective
There.
call anywhere in the world that there's teacher trainings. We want to get this book translated. If you can be a part of any aspect of how to do that better and to do that more fully, I'll have Els Kunen's contact in the show notes as well. The Abuse in Kundalini Yoga website is an excellent hub to stay up to date on the latest and greatest chaos happening in the Kundalini Yoga world. So she puts the latest lawsuits, the documentaries, all of the different updated things that you want to know is on the Kundalini Yoga Abuse website. That's also in the show notes. We'll have a link to your guys' Spanish channel in the show notes as well. If you speak Spanish and know people that have a story and they can only speak their story in Spanish, please contact Ivan and Rodolfo, and they have a platform now to be able to allow this story to come forth. If you know how to translate and get my podcasts translated into Spanish, we would like that so we can get those on the channel. Any way you want to contribute to this movement of disrupting the Kundalini Yoga teacher training system and the Sikh Dharma funnel so that more lives don't get destroyed in the next several decades, we are here for it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your hearts.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you, and we hope to arrange very good chapters for the new channel and to still spreading this manifesto, these 11 topics
Beautiful.
that are very necessary
Thank you.
to
Thank you
keep
both.
alive. Thank you.
And
Thank
this
you,
has
Guru
been
Nishan.
another episode of the Uncomfortable Conversations podcast, the untold stories of the 3HO Kundalini Yoga community. If you'd like to contribute to this podcast, you can make a one-time or monthly donation at gurunishan.com/uncomfortable conversations. You can also visit my Substack at conversationsyoucanfeel.com. And to be a guest on the podcast, please send an email to gn@gurunishan.com. You can subscribe, follow, and support my provocative truth-telling work at gurunishan.com. I thank you so much. Please like and support and rate this podcast on whatever platform you listen to it on. And if you'd like to be a guest, be sure to reach out. I am here for stories when and if you are ready. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and we'll talk to you on the next episode. We're going to bring Rodolfo back to tell his personal story so that he gets a chance to really give us a lens into the lived experience in Guadalajara. So thank you again for bringing your heart and for announcing your guys' work, and also for just being resilient to push through what it means to be called names and all the things that happens when you start to speak out the truth when the dark is trying to be hidden. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank all of you.